Hello, everyone. Today, we're diving into the chilling secrets hidden inside the mansion of Rick Harrison, the star of Pawn Stars. The FBI has uncovered dark truths, from stolen ancient artifacts to a horrifying reality that has shocked America. Let's uncover this spine-tingling story together. Rick Harrison's lavish mansion, once a symbol of luxury and success, has now become the center of a chilling revelation. The FBI has uncovered a dark secret hidden behind the glitz. Stolen ancient artifacts and horrifying crimes buried beneath the shine. Who is the man truly behind the fame, adored by millions? Let's uncover the shocking truth. Did Rick Harrison's horrifying story send chills down your spine? Share your thoughts in the comments. Drop a 1 if you found the case shocking, or a 0 if you think there are still secrets yet to be uncovered. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next chilling story. Let's spread the word and uncover the truth together. Beneath its once luxurious exterior, the house now seemed consumed by time and neglect. The lower floors were flooded, plaster peeled from the walls, and the entire structure looked on the verge of collapse. Papers, books, and debris were scattered across the floor, evoking the image of a place long abandoned, with no sign of anyone having lived or cared for it in years. When the search warrant for Rick Harrison's home was issued, many assumed it was just a routine financial investigation, a simple audit of business operations or a few suspicious transactions. However, everything took a dark turn when FBI agents descended into the basement. Behind a heavy door, sealed with freshly laid bricks, lay a chilling secret no one could have anticipated. When the door was broken down, what they discovered wasn't just a body. It was the beginning of a chilling chain of truths waiting to be uncovered. Now, let's begin the journey to uncover the secrets hidden behind the veil of silence. As each brick was removed, the FBI uncovered something no one could have imagined. Bodies scattered in the suffocating darkness. The stench was so overwhelming that several agents had to hold their breath just to continue their work. As the identification process began, the truth gradually came to light, and that's when the case became the center of international media attention. The case was not only shocking due to its severity, but also because the central figure was none other than Rick Harrison, a familiar face on television, once hailed as a symbol of perseverance and business acumen. What could have turned a beloved figure into the focus of such a serious investigation? The answer is far from simple. Behind the glamour and luxury was an enigmatic network and a past that Rick had hidden for years. The investigation didn't begin with a major shock, but from unusual figures in financial reports. In early 2022, during a routine audit by the IRS and FBI, Rick's famous pawn shop was found to have suspicious financial activities. Small but frequent discrepancies, particularly involving cash transactions and items with unclear origins, caught the attention of investigators. Initially, many thought this was just another tax fraud case, like hundreds of others in Nevada. But Rick Harrison was no ordinary businessman. He was the face of the American antiques industry, a national television star with millions of followers. Known for his exotic, rare, and valuable items, he had appeared on TV hundreds of times. So the lack of transparency in his financial records raised questions. Could there be another story behind his success? The FBI in Las Vegas set up a special unit to closely monitor the shop's financial activities. They soon uncovered a series of suspicious transactions, multiple cash sums ranging from $15,000 to $50,000 with no clear receipts, along with rare items like ancient Buddha statues, 13th-century Chinese ceramics, and ancient Egyptian artifacts that appeared without documentation of their origin. Most shockingly, some of these artifacts matched lists of items stolen from museums in Asia, the Middle East, and Europe. A particular clue elevated the case to an international level. Rick Harrison's name had appeared multiple times in Interpol's internal alert system. Three valuable artifacts found in Rick Harrison's pawn shop before being auctioned off in Los Angeles stunned authorities. According to an internal FBI report, these items matched a list of stolen assets and armed robbery cases in Syria and Jordan. They had mysteriously disappeared from conflict zones just months earlier, only to suddenly appear in Las Vegas as legitimate goods. Did the Rick Harrison case shake you to your core? Drop a 2 in the comments if the horrifying secrets inside his mansion left you stunned, or a 5 if you think there are still more terrifying truths being hidden. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this video so we can uncover more chilling stories, scarier than any horror movie. As investigators began to dig into the financial records of Rick Harrison's business, an incredibly complex network of transactions started to emerge. The money earned from selling the antiques was funneled through multiple layers of bank accounts, primarily through front companies based in Cyprus and the British Virgin Islands, before being transferred back to the United States as personal investments. In less than 2 years, the amount moved back was estimated to exceed $4.7 million. This discovery completely shifted the FBI's approach. What was once viewed as a simple case of tax fraud quickly escalated into a potential global money laundering operation, with Rick Harrison possibly playing a central role. The investigation expanded further, this time focusing on high-profile clients who frequently visited the store. It was here that agents uncovered a shocking truth. At least 5 individuals who made large transactions with Rick between 2017 and 2021 had mysteriously disappeared. To this day, those missing persons cases remain unsolved, and none of them were ever officially linked to Rick Harrison in any public records. Although no direct evidence tied Rick to the disappearances, the disturbing string of coincidences prompted the FBI to place him under continuous covert surveillance for 6 months. The focus of the surveillance was Rick's private residence, a sprawling 1,000-square-meter mansion tucked away in a quiet suburb on the west side of Las Vegas. The estate was secured with a state-of-the-art security system, but what truly caught investigators' attention were the unusual late-night deliveries. Large, unmarked wooden crates were transported by unlicensed trucks, driven by men with shady backgrounds, some of whom had previously been investigated for involvement in illegal antiquities trafficking. What raised the most concern among agents was the discovery that at least 3 areas within the mansion did not appear on the original architectural plans. This strongly suggested that these spaces had been constructed to conceal something meant to stay hidden from prying eyes. With an accumulating pile of unusual evidence, a formal search warrant was issued on April 17, 2024. When the FBI raided the mansion, what they found left the entire investigation team stunned. From seemingly minor financial clues, they uncovered one of the most shocking cases in the history of American reality television, involving a range of serious crimes from money laundering and cultural artifact smuggling to suspicions of involvement in mysterious, unsolved disappearances. Rick Harrison, once beloved by the public for his image as a polite, knowledgeable businessman with a friendly smile, now became the centerpiece of an unprecedented case. His double life shook the faith of millions of fans and raised a haunting question. Behind the spotlight of reality television, how many secrets have never been revealed? Rick Harrison's estate, located in the affluent suburb of West Las Vegas, was once hailed by Lifestyle magazine as a history buff's paradise. From the outside, the mansion appeared ordinary, sitting on over 2 acres of land, surrounded by tall iron gates and shady trees. At the back were a large swimming pool and a 4-car garage. Every detail exuded the understated elegance of a millionaire television personality with refined taste and an enviable private lifestyle. But beneath the glamorous exterior was a secret that FBI agents later described as an architected nightmare. Armed with a formal search warrant and the assistance of a forensic team, the FBI raided the property in the early morning hours of April 17, 2024. Initially, they expected to find only a few financial documents and smuggled artifacts, but the reality far exceeded all expectations. Upon entering, an indescribable feeling quickly enveloped the team. Despite the luxurious and carefully decorated interior, the mansion exuded a strange coldness, not in temperature, but in atmosphere, as if no one actually lived there. Some rooms were covered with thick curtains and showed no signs of life, giving the impression of being abandoned. Many areas of the house were locked in unusual ways, seemingly to conceal something. On the ground floor, agents discovered several large wooden barrels hidden in the wine cellar, accessible only to the owner. However, these barrels did not contain wine, but rare artifacts wrapped in velvet, bearing the emblems of museums in the Middle East, Asia, and North Africa. Most of the items were undocumented, and many matched a list of items stolen during organized burglaries between 2016 and 2022. The real horror began when an agent discovered a secret room hidden behind a false wall in Rick's private library. The room was windowless, completely silent, and fully sealed off. Inside was a decomposing body wrapped in a large tarp. No identification was found, but a nearby antique clock was later confirmed to belong to a collector reported missing in 2019. This shocking discovery triggered the FBI's emergency protocol. The mansion was immediately locked down, forensic units were mobilized, and the search area was urgently expanded. Over the next 48 hours, 24 more bodies were discovered. Some were hidden in basement storage areas, others were buried under hollow floorboards, and some were even concealed in areas not present in the original plans, indicating unauthorized structural modifications to hide something. The state of decomposition varied, with some bodies having been there for over 5 years, according to forensic analysis. Most victims were males between the ages of 30 and 50. Some were identified as missing persons from neighboring states, while others could not be identified due to dismemberment. What particularly caught investigators' attention was that most victims had some connection to the gold and silver pawn shop or had engaged in artifact-related transactions with Rick. This suspicious connection further complicated the investigation and raised major questions about the true nature of Rick Harrison's activities. The findings at the scene not only solidified the link between the mysterious disappearances and Rick's shady dealings, but also opened the door to a haunting world behind the businessman's facade. Among the evidence collected were hundreds of handwritten notes, believed to be Rick's personal diary. These pages were filled with his thoughts, assessments, and intentions regarding the people he partnered with in significant deals. Some passages were chilling, such as, "He knows too much to be allowed to live," or "high risk, but it might be worth it." The cold, calculated language led investigators to a grave conclusion. Rick Harrison was not merely an antiques dealer, but potentially a dangerous individual whose actions were meticulously planned. The next disturbing discovery was a room dubbed the Secret Gallery, deep in the basement, completely soundproofed, disconnected from the main electrical system, and accessible only by biometrics. Inside, investigators encountered a bizarre sight: photographs of victims, personal belongings, identification papers, and numerous items believed to have been kept as mementos after their disappearance. Some called it a grotesque memorial, but to the FBI, it was clear evidence of an obsessive mentality, where an individual sought to preserve the power and memory of each person who had vanished. When Rick was arrested, he showed no signs of panic. According to one agent, Rick remained coldly calm, neither resisting nor speaking, just standing silently as the mansion, once a symbol of his fame and success, was sealed off. This eerie composure led many to believe that Rick had planned everything in advance, deliberately, strategically, and with utmost secrecy. No one, not even family or friends, had ever noticed anything unusual. The arrest immediately became a national news headline. The public was stunned. How could a man beloved by millions through the small screen live an entirely different life behind closed doors? The media swarmed Las Vegas, gathering at the gates of the once luxurious estate, now the scene of one of the most shocking cases in reality television history. Reporters and cameras crowded to capture every detail. With each passing hour, the revelations sent chills across the nation. This was not just a case of deception or corruption, as the public might have imagined, but a far darker and more haunting secret. Rick Harrison, the man who once stood behind the counter in a polo shirt negotiating antiques, was now suspected of masterminding a series of horrific crimes, something no one could have fathomed. As agents dug deeper, they realized Rick had turned his home into a deadly maze. Every door, every wall could conceal a horrifying secret. In total, 25 victims were confirmed. And what was even more terrifying was that Rick lived among those brutal memories as if nothing was wrong. Death, in a way, had become part of the job in the high-stakes world of antique trading. The story prompted society to ask a profound question. How could someone maintain two identities, one public, one in the shadows, for nearly a decade without anyone noticing? Then, 3 individuals came forward. They revealed the existence of an underground network in which Rick was not just a link, but the central figure. As the investigation into Rick Harrison's properties concluded, investigators realized that what they had uncovered was merely the tip of the iceberg. The rest could be far more extensive and dangerous than anyone had previously suspected. The bodies found bore no signs of impulsive, out-of-control behavior from a madman. On the contrary, every detail was calculated, orderly, and almost terrifyingly perfect. This led the FBI to suspect that Rick Harrison might not be a lone killer, but a critical cog in a sophisticated underground organization, an international criminal network where antiques were merely a cover and human lives were the price paid to keep things running smoothly. From the seized electronic devices, including hard drives, private servers, and encrypted phones, the FBI discovered a closed communication system. Anonymous platforms like Ankroat and Sky ECC were used to exchange information in a nearly untraceable manner. Working with Europol to decrypt the data, they accessed hundreds of messages sent directly from Rick's device, containing codes and symbols describing delivery locations, product code names, values, and strange terms like black rice, gold, and blood formula. Internal language used in illicit antiquities transactions. At least 12 individuals were identified as Rick's associates, all with a history of artifact smuggling and connections to organized crime syndicates in Turkey, Iraq, Egypt, and the Balkans. Notably, 2 of them, known by the pseudonyms Farouk and Assam, are currently on Interpol's Red List. A 2020 report revealed they had orchestrated the theft of nearly 300 artifacts from the Syrian National Museum during the Civil War. Rick's direct connection to these 2 individuals through negotiations and transportation arrangements was confirmed by the extracted data. Rick's role became even more troubling when the FBI discovered that he was not only a buyer of antiquities, but also directly involved in the process of laundering, assessing legitimacy, and legalizing the items before they hit the market. In other words, Rick was not just a middleman, but a strategic advisor, a key player in the entire system. According to the FBI's model, the smuggling chain operated in a triangular structure. Supplies came from unstable regions like the Middle East and Eastern Europe. Transit hubs were primarily in France, Switzerland, and Belgium, and the final consumer markets were the United States and China. Rick was the gateway to the United States through the gold and silver pawn shop, a perfect cover for illegal activities. From 2016 to 2023, it is estimated that Rick Harrison legalized at least 147 valuable antiquities, with total transactions exceeding $19 million. These items included a 6th-century Buddha statue stolen from India, an ancient lion statue from Armenia, 2 bronze wine vessels from China's Zhou dynasty, and a near-perfect copy of the Egyptian Book of the Dead that went missing from Luxor in 2011. All of these artifacts are banned from commercial circulation under international law. However, Rick's reputation as an antiquities expert helped him bypass all checks. The network was maintained in the shadows with extreme sophistication. Transactions were conducted through middlemen, payments were routed through Caribbean shell companies, and accompanying fake paperwork was produced in secret facilities in Romania and Hong Kong. It all painted a complex and murky picture of a world that the once iconic TV star Rick Harrison had secretly manipulated for years. Those who dared to question or oppose Rick Harrison's activities mysteriously disappeared. Their bodies were eventually found in the lavish estate Rick had built with the proceeds of his shady dealings. One of the most notable cases was that of Javier Montes, a Spanish collector who went missing in Las Vegas in 2020, shortly after meeting Rick. According to Javier's wife, he had expressed concerns about the dubious origins of some artifacts Rick provided. Javier vanished without a trace soon after. His remains were eventually confirmed through dental DNA analysis as one of the 25 bodies found in Rick's mansion. Another case was that of Valerie Chen, a Canadian freelance journalist who wrote a series of investigative pieces about how pawn shops in the United States exploit legal loopholes to trade antiques. She attempted to interview Rick, but disappeared just months later in Nevada. The FBI confirmed that one of the female bodies found in the basement of Rick's mansion matched her DNA. These cases painted a chilling picture. Rick not only eliminated rivals, but also killed anyone who threatened to expose the truth about the network he was part of. In a diary found at the scene, Rick wrote a chilling sentence: "To keep the gold, sometimes you have to bury the person who mined it." The FBI's investigation didn't stop with Rick. The agency discovered that he had associates, people who knew, or at least suspected, part of the truth. Among those questioned were prominent figures in the antiques world, including a New York museum consultant and an auctioneer hired by a leading auction house. These individuals were suspected of helping authenticate shady artifacts, though no formal criminal charges have been filed. The list of suspects continues to grow, and part of the reason for this elaborate cover-up lies with Rick himself. As a beloved television personality, Rick had built a perfect media shield. He appeared to the public as sincere, calm, and knowledgeable about history. Audiences were not only captivated by his stories, but also trusted his ability to appraise artifacts. Rick frequently gave talks, participated in exhibitions, and maintained close relationships with prestigious historical organizations, further cementing his respectable position in the public eye. Any rumors about him were quickly dismissed because no one could believe that someone like Rick, famous, successful, and prestigious, could be involved in a sophisticated smuggling ring. The deeper problem lies not just with Rick Harrison, but with the very nature of the global antiquities trade. It is a sector where the line between legal and illegal is blurred, where few items can be fully traced back to their provenance, and where authenticity often relies more on personal reputation than clear documentation. Rick was more than a cog in that system. He rewrote the rules of the game. What the investigation uncovered made the Rick Harrison case a watershed moment, far beyond a personal scandal. It opened a new chapter in the global fight against cultural trafficking, where criminals no longer wear masks, but instead don suits, stand on television stages, and smile as they talk about historical value. When the FBI released the first evidence, the American public was shocked, not only by the number of 25 bodies discovered, but also by a far more terrifying question. How many more people have disappeared? How many artifacts are being illegally circulated? And how many prestigious museums are actually part of a network where Rick Harrison is merely the tip of a hidden dragon? People once thought Rick Harrison was just a lover of history and antiques, a reality TV expert with vast knowledge. But then they gradually uncovered a horrifying truth. This man was actually the leader of a sophisticated criminal network, hiding behind a humble and trustworthy facade. This story not only shook public faith in reality television, but also sparked a wave of doubt about the legitimacy of thousands of rare artifacts in circulation. Are the prestigious museums we once revered truly cultural archives, or merely fronts for shady transactions? On television, Rick Harrison was the ideal model of a smart, calm businessman with the ability to appraise everything from Roman coins to Civil War weapons. He didn't just value antiques, he inspired through historical stories rich in humanity. This set him apart from other reality TV stars. Audiences loved Rick not only for his entertainment, but also for his profound insights. But when the FBI raided Rick's mansion, the world came crashing down. How could someone live a double life for over a decade, being both a moral icon and a shadowy villain? The answer lies not in talent or cunning alone. Rick Harrison had carefully constructed a fake life, meticulously controlling every aspect of his image and what others thought of him. This was more than just a disguise. It was a system of dual living, driven by isolation and splitting himself into separate identities. Inside the mansion, investigators found secret diaries describing a completely different Rick. Depressed, exhausted by the pressure of maintaining a public image, yearning for a private space where I could do whatever I wanted without asking anyone's permission. One particularly chilling diary entry read, "Everyone has a secret museum. Some display memories, some hide failures. Mine are full of bodies, but at least they don't lie." This wasn't a confession, but a cold, calculated admission. Rick Harrison knew exactly who he was. He didn't deny the darkness in his mind. He simply learned to hide it just outside the limelight, where people still applauded him. According to criminal psychologists, Rick showed no signs of a spontaneous or out-of-control killer. On the contrary, he exhibited all the traits of a highly manipulative person, orderly and cold, maintaining a perfect facade between his public life and the dark underworld. That's how he coexisted, appearing regularly on television while only a few meters away from where his victims' bodies were hidden. One defining characteristic of people like Rick is their obsession with absolute power, not just in their actions but also in their thoughts. Rick didn't just smuggle physical goods, he wanted to control every aspect, from sourcing to pricing to the seller's reputation. For Rick, if something was priceless, he was the one who had the right to define its value. This mindset drove Rick to deal with system errors, ruthlessly, not out of personal animosity, but because the victim interfered with the perfect operation of his empire. He dealt with them as if removing a faulty component from an industrial chain, silently and without mercy. During the investigation, experts discovered a secret room locked with a fingerprint recognition system, accessible only to Rick. Inside were glass cases displaying not antique watches or old guns, but the victim's personal belongings: watches, necklaces, airline tickets, hotel receipts, and family photos. The FBI called this place a crime vault, but for Rick, it was his true ledger. He once wrote, "I don't count money, I count people who don't deserve to live." His obsession with collecting, though bizarre, revealed another terrifying layer of Rick's mind. He didn't kill to hide guilt or lose control. He killed to remember. Each life he took was kept as a trophy, like a Roman coin or an antique gun. Not to glorify him, but to mark his dark triumph. This time, Rick's collection wasn't antiques, but fragments of erased lives. The divide between the Rick the public knew and the Rick in the shadows didn't stem from childhood trauma or personal tragedy. It was the result of a cold process where a person learned to split their soul in two to operate in two unsuspecting worlds. According to psychological reports requested by the FBI, Rick Harrison had a fairly normal childhood, free from abuse or a history of mental illness. However, from a young age, Rick showed signs of an obsession with superiority. He was passionate about winning, constantly trying to prove others wrong, and was especially uncomfortable when questioned. A high school teacher once described Rick as a quiet, socially insignificant student who always wanted to be the only one with the right answers. Rick wasn't surprised by his fame. To him, fame wasn't a gift, but a tool. Over more than a decade on Pawn Stars, Rick rarely made major mistakes. He carefully controlled his content, only appearing when everything was perfectly prepared, and always stayed clear of tabloid gossip. This showed he understood the power of image and used it as an invisible shield against all suspicions. This control shocked the public when the truth came out. Rick wasn't a freak or a psychopath. He was the embodiment of calm dependability, and that's what made the case so profoundly serious. If even a symbol of trust could be a cold-blooded killer, who could be trusted? Rick's loyal audience was largely middle-class Americans who believed in individual effort and the dream of rising from nothing. They looked up to Rick because he was a living example of that. The incident left them not only hurt, but with a deep sense of betrayal, as if Rick had not only taken lives but also destroyed the faith of millions in the media and the image of success they once admired. But this division, this dark side, wasn't just about Rick as an individual. It reflected the very nature of reality television, where everything can be staged, edited, and polished to seem more real than it is. Rick understood this and used that foundation to build a version so perfect that even he got caught up in it. But the man the FBI found in the mansion was the real Rick. Not an appraiser of antiques, but an appraiser of human lives, with each value recorded as cold evidence of his ambition for absolute control. The clearest evidence was the discovery of 25 bodies inside the mansion, shocking the public not only because of the number, but also because of the identities of those involved. This was a case that stunned not just for its horror, but because the person named was a celebrity who had appeared on television for over a decade, a face familiar to millions of American families. Now he was exposed as one of the most dangerous and sophisticated individuals ever known in reality television history. The initial public reaction quickly focused on Rick's family, particularly Corey Big Hoss Harrison, Rick's biological son, and longtime co-star on Pawn Stars. Corey was not only the heir by blood, but also seen as the successor to his father's television legacy. So, when shocking allegations emerged about Rick, a successful father and businessman revealed to be the mastermind behind a series of murders and the leader of an international antiquities smuggling network, Corey immediately became the center of scrutiny. He was grilled by the media, and the public wondered, did Corey truly know nothing? Did he ever notice anything unusual during hundreds of episodes and over a decade of working alongside his father? With his image as a cheerful, sometimes naive son who always appeared in major deals with his father, suspicion was inevitable. Public opinion was sharply divided. One side expressed sympathy, viewing Corey as a victim of a family tragedy. The other questioned whether he knew but chose to remain silent to protect his reputation and interests. In his only public appearance since the incident, Corey briefly addressed the camera. "I didn't know. If I had known, I wouldn't be here today. I'm his son, not his accomplice." Though his words seemed sincere, they couldn't quell the wave of suspicion online. Users began digging up old interviews, analyzing every detail in the show's episodes for signs that Corey might have noticed his father's dark side. While no clear conclusions emerged, Corey's once beloved image as a loyal heir was now tainted by doubt. The shock for the production team wasn't just the scale of the crimes, but the fact that they had worked and filmed with a killer for over a decade without anyone suspecting anything. An anonymous assistant who worked on the show told The Hollywood Reporter that Rick controlled everything behind the scenes, from scripts to filming schedules. He was never overly friendly, but always punctual, professional, and remarkably calm. In hindsight, that calmness now sends chills down the spine. When the scandal broke, the History Channel had no choice but to permanently cancel Pawn Stars, despite it being one of their longest-running and most lucrative franchises. Advertising contracts, international distribution rights, and tour arrangements were all canceled in less than 10 days. Cast members, many of whom had been with the show since its inception, were suddenly out of work, feeling deceived and used. A veteran cameraman sadly admitted, "I feel like I helped create a media monster." The famous pawn shop, once a tourist attraction in Las Vegas where fans flocked to see the space from the show and perhaps meet the real Rick Harrison, was also closed indefinitely. The entire building was sealed off for investigation, and tourists largely avoided the area. People who once rushed to buy a trinket or snap a photo were now reluctant to set foot there. Rick Harrison's family quickly fell apart. His wife, who occasionally appeared in behind-the-scenes footage, vanished from public view and is believed to have left Nevada. Rick's children, previously relatively private, also remained silent. According to some sources, they are cooperating with investigators to determine whether the family's assets were obtained through illegal activities, a crucial step to avoid criminal liability. In late March 2025, Rick Harrison was formally charged with 29 counts, including first-degree murder, running a criminal organization, antiquities trafficking, money laundering, and obstructing justice. The indictment was expedited after nearly 3 months of investigation involving over 70 federal agents and criminal experts. By this point, there was no doubt. Rick Harrison was the key figure in a series of organized murders that took place right in his mansion, where the FBI discovered 25 hidden bodies, turning the grounds into a chilling museum of crime. The first trial opened on September 18, 2024, in a federal courthouse in Nevada, under tight security and intense scrutiny from international media. The press dubbed it the trial of the century for reality television. Over 200 journalists were permitted to report live from outside the courthouse, while CNN, NBC, and CBS provided daily analysis, dissecting every detail of the trial. Never before had a reality TV star in America faced such an overwhelming number of accusations and evidence. Nevada prosecutor Maria Lopez opened with a chilling statement. The defendant, Rick Harrison, was not just a murderer. He built a criminal empire. Every brick in his mansion was laid with the blood and bones of his victims. The prosecution's case rested on 3 main pillars: physical evidence from the crime scenes, including victims' remains, diaries, and personal items; electronic data, such as encrypted messages, secret audio recordings, and internal surveillance; and testimony from witnesses who had traded artifacts with Rick or been threatened by him. A shocking detail revealed in court silenced the courtroom. A video showed Rick Harrison standing in the mansion's library in front of one of his trophy cases. In the video, he touched a necklace later identified as belonging to victim Valerie Chen. Rick said nothing, but the cold, emotionless look in his eyes as he gazed at the item sent shivers down the jury's spine. The stillness of his actions was a chilling reminder that Rick's cruelty was not a spur-of-the-moment act, but a deeply ingrained part of him, a calculated plan, a clear demonstration of the power and control he always sought to maintain. The defense, led by prominent attorney Peter O'Donnell, employed a dual strategy, denying the murder charges and questioning the legitimacy of the investigation. They argued that much of the evidence was likely fabricated and that Rick Harrison was the victim of a conspiracy to destroy his reputation and fortune. O'Donnell repeatedly called the case a trial by media, criticizing how the public and press convicted Rick before he had a chance to defend himself. However, these arguments couldn't counter the overwhelming evidence against him, prompting the defense to shift tactics, suggesting that Rick might suffer from dissociative personality disorder or unresolved psychological trauma. They claimed his actions could stem from an unstable mental state, but medical records and psychological evaluations conducted by the FBI completely debunked this claim. Rick was found to be fully aware of his actions and had no history of mental illness. Psychologists concluded he was mentally competent to stand trial and fully capable of understanding and taking responsibility for his actions. The trial reached its climax when Rick Harrison was allowed to take the stand, a surprising decision. For nearly 40 minutes, he maintained eye contact, spoke in a monotone voice, and denied all murder charges. He declared, "I'm a businessman. I deal in antiques. I'm not a murderer. Everything you've said about me, about the mansion, about the bodies, is either fabricated or part of a setup." Yet his denials only further alienated the jury. His complete lack of remorse and detachment from the reality of his crimes clashed with the overwhelming evidence. Witness testimony shed further light on the case. A former employee testified that Rick had threatened him for knowing too much about the company's secrets and Rick's unethical actions. An auctioneer admitted to being paid to falsify the provenance of artifacts Rick sold, facilitating illegal transactions. A journalist who worked with Valerie Chen confirmed that Valerie expressed fears for her safety after investigating Rick, even sharing concerns about what might happen if she revealed those secrets. Just weeks later, Valerie went missing, fueling suspicions of Rick's involvement. These testimonies not only provided critical details, but also exposed the dangerous relationship between Rick and those around him. Finally, after nearly 7 weeks of litigation and over 80 hearings, the 12-member jury delivered a unanimous verdict. Rick Harrison was guilty of first-degree murder for all 25 identified victims, along with charges of money laundering, artifact trafficking, and operating a transnational criminal organization. The sentence was life in prison without the possibility of parole. The court also ordered the forfeiture of all of Rick's assets, including his mansion, gold and silver pawn shops, international bank accounts, and a collection of artifacts worth millions of dollars. As Rick was escorted out of the courtroom, he didn't look back. He walked as if resigned to his fate, not like a man betrayed, but like a man whose secrets had been exposed. With a blank expression, he disappeared behind the steel doors, taking with him a past that America wants to forget, but will never forget. Rick Harrison went from a national television icon to a repeat offender, a serial killer, and the mastermind behind an international antiquities trafficking network. He not only destroyed himself, but also left a dark legacy on reality television and, more broadly, on public perceptions of truth and trust. The trial is over, the verdict is in, but the cracks that the Rick Harrison case left in the fabric of American society remain. In academic forums, media conferences, and journalism classes, the name Rick Harrison has become a textbook example of the duplicitous nature of public image. A reminder of the failure of both the public and the reality television industry to see beyond the glossy surface. The Rick Harrison case exposed the dark underbelly beneath the glamour, leaving America with haunting questions about truth and trust. What secrets remain hidden? Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and share to join us in uncovering more chilling stories.